Hi folks, it's Mark Piatkowski. Yes, it's time for another episode 2 of the That's a Rally podcast. It's a pleasure for me to introduce one of my personal heroes, Antoine L'Estage. He's a hero because he's one of us. He's worked for his success. Without major funding, he went toe-to-toe with factory teams, and he succeeded. We caught up at the Southern Ohio Forest Rally, and I managed to grab what can only be described as Chillicothe's smallest conference room. So for those watching on video, I can only manage one camera angle. We talked about Antoine's career, his hunger to succeed, and some very interesting insight he's never shared publicly before. I hope you enjoy. Okay, Antoine, thank you very much for joining the show. It's an honor to have you here. You're one of the few people in North American rallying that I've really looked up to. I'll give you the first time we met. You probably don't remember this. It was STPR 2010. This was my first rally. I don't know if you knew my first rally, probably not, because you're off doing your own thing. But at Park Expose, you came up to me. Probably because I looked very nervous. You said, take it easy this one, enjoy it. That's the main thing about rallying. And I appreciated that. I'm sure you said other things, but you probably saw that I was quite nervous before my first event.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I did not remember that, to be honest, but yeah, thanks for having me, and yeah, cool memory.
Definitely. I have some brief bullet points over here about you. Let me know if there's anything else to add to the list. You are the most successful Canadian rally driver ever. 6-time North America Rally Cup champion.
7.
Ooh, the internet is wrong. 10-time Canadian Rally champion, 2010 Rally America champion, X Games medalist. I mean, the list goes on and on. When I say those things, are you the person that kind of reflects like, yeah, I achieved this, or how do you reflect on all of that?
Well, when you're in it, you don't really think about these things. You just do your thing. As you know, as a rally driver, you're focusing after a rally, you're focusing to the next one. And when you start winning also, it's all about just winning more and stuff like that. But now that I'm less active, let's say, for sure, it's cool sometime to have a look at that. But I'm not really, it's more people that will bring it to me and talk to me about it. I'm not the kind of guy that will brag that I did this or this or this. So, but yeah, it's for sure it's a nice feeling to when you look at these numbers and stuff like that. But yeah, maybe when I'll be very old, I'm already old, but maybe when I'll be very old in my rocking chair, I'll look back and I'll be happy. But yeah, I'm proud of what I did for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, 11-time Canadian Rally champion wouldn't have changed. Like it's not the number. It's you going out there and having fun and trying your best, and then the accolades come after that.
Yeah, correct.
I have some photos here of your career, which I'm very excited to show you. But first, I want to kind of give some context for the audience. I know your dad rallied, but let me ask you, why rally, and how did you get started in rallying? Let's kind of start from the beginning. I have this photo.
Yeah.
Do we
show it to people, or you'll show
it? I'll show it.
Yeah. Well, that's a photo. It was at the Montreal Auto Show where Peugeot had in a motorsports section, let's say the Pikes Peak 405 from Ari Vatanen.
Yes.
So I was probably 15 back then, and I was already really hooked into rallying because of my dad, like you mentioned. So was it a family love affair type of thing? Yeah, for sure. So my dad rallied. So when we were young, we went to rallies, me and my siblings, like at an age where I can't even remember. So I have photos where I'm just a toddler, we say, and I'm at the rallies. So Same. So, and at some point, my dad stopped because we just had a normal life, and we played hockey, my brother and I. And at some point, I guess, later in life, you realize it was probably very expensive to do both. So he stopped a little bit. And he started rallying again when I was 14. And that's where I really got hooked up right away. And my dad, not only would go to rallies, but he would bring tapes from the World Championship from Europe at home, and he would bring magazines and stuff like that. So, and it became a passion, and it's still my passion. That's what, like, there's not a single day where I'm not thinking or reading about rallying.
Yeah.
So,
do you think if it wasn't for your dad, do you think you would have been introduced into rallying somehow?
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Maybe not. You know, it's a complex sport, as you know. It's my nephew is just starting to do some little rally sprints at home, and I had to go through the process with him of starting and getting a membership in a club and asking questions about these small rallies. And I'm thinking, for the normal person that doesn't have any contact with rallying, it's very hard to start. So I don't know if it would have happened, but for sure, the first time I can remember that I was on the forest stage and I saw the first car coming, and the first car that came was John Buffum with a Group B Quattro.
Yeah.
So you can just imagine, like in 86.
Yeah. Do you know what rally this was?
Rally Défi.
Okay.
So Rally Défi 86. We're running in the stage, and we're actually late, so we missed the course opening car, you know, the zero car. That sometimes can be impressive for someone that never been to a rally. So we missed that. We're running to our spot, and the first ever rally car I saw live in a stage was John with the
Audi Quattro.
Audi Quattro Group B, the A2 it was back then. It was before the Sport Quattro, the short wheelbase. So I was blown away, and since then I always wanted to rally.
Yeah, awesome. I want to start in 1998. I couldn't find photos of this, but you had a Toyota Corolla. So kind of talk through the audience. Was this your first street car that you turned into a rally car? Why did you choose the Corolla? I know it's obviously a very popular car, rear-wheel drive, very fun. How did that come about?
Yeah, back in the day, like in the, let's say, 80s, it was a very popular car, the Toyota Corolla GTS. Rear-wheel drive car, 16-valve engine, and pretty cool car for that time.
Yeah.
And when I started rallying, I thought, okay, the four-wheel drive cars had started already, but we could not afford that. So, yes, it was my street car. I got one rear-wheel drive Toyota and slowly built it.
You built it yourself?
Yeah. Myself and some friends. And I had a guy did the roll cage, but after that we did the small things we had to do with it. We did it ourselves.
Yeah.
And like I told you earlier, my dad was rallying, so I got put in contact with rallying very early, but we were not a rich family, so I had to sort this out myself, basically. And it took like a year or two maybe to finally say, okay, let's go do a rally.
Same.
And the car was basically stock. We only had, and you can imagine back then, I only had one bucket seat because it was not mandatory. So the co-driver was still using the
factory seat.
The factory seat. And we went to the first rally with a standard suspension, only a small skid plate in the front, 2 hella lights in the front, I think 6 tires. And we just went and tried to learn the sport. And it was an easy car to drive, rear-wheel drive, good car to learn. And that's how I started from. So the first rally I did was 1995, actually. So from 95 to 98, let's say 99.
Yeah.
I had another two-wheel drive Toyota that was more Group 2 car, better prepared, more power.
Yeah.
But for 3 or 4 years, I was driving these cars, but only doing 2 or 3 rallies per year.
Local events.
Local, regional rallies.
So let's go back to the first rally. Do you remember how it went for you? Did you finish? Because the reason why I'm asking is the first rally, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, is so influential on your career, because if you have a bad taste on your first event.
We did finish, but we shoveled a lot. It was
a winter rally.
It was a winter rally with a rear-wheel drive Corolla with no limited slip, just factory diffs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my brother was co-driving for me, but we had the spirit already when we were young. We were within my family. Rallying was always about who's the fastest. It was, some people go rally for the adventure, and it's okay. Everybody finds its way with rallying and meet friends and stuff like that. But for us, it was always about more from the European mentality. Maybe it's the goal is to be the fastest. So right away with these small cars, we go to our first rally and we're thinking we're going to beat the big guys with the factory 4-wheel drive car. So
as we all do.
Sure enough, we stuffed it, but I think we stuffed it properly like twice, and each time we were able to somehow shovel and have someone pull us, and we did finish the rally quite far.
Yeah.
But it was a good learning experience, and I tell all the young people, just go out there. Your car doesn't need to be perfect. Learn the sport. It's a complex sport. Go out there, do some rallies, try to understand everything that goes around rallying.
Those are the words you were telling me.
Yeah.
STPR 2010.
Probably because some people, they want to have the perfect car. They're waiting, they're spending the money, but they don't do the events. They don't experience the recce. They don't experience rallying at night, different conditions. Just preparing the rig and go to a rally, and you need to go out there and yeah.
So for you, it was more so the sense of competition rather than the allure of like going out in the forest and going sideways. I would agree with that. Like I enjoy the aspect of rallying, but I really enjoy the competition of it, and I think that's what drives a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. Being sideways in the woods at night, there's something. It's like a drug, you know. Yeah. We all love this, but I've always done it like looking at the times and are we beating this guy, and we need to go faster. We need to do this and this, and so it's always the mentality I had even when I was young and I started. Yeah,
because that's how you improve. At the end.
For sure. I think.
Yeah. I have the first picture here. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
I believe this is 2001.
Yeah, 2001, the first year with the Eagle Talon. In the U.S., do you call it the Eclipse, I think?
We had the Eclipse and then the Eagle Talon as well.
Yeah, so it's the Eagle Talon. 4-wheel drive car, production car.
Yeah. So explain to the audience, you went from a rear-wheel drive Corolla. Why did you choose a Talon?
Again, at that time, so that was 2001. So in the mid-90s, let's say, I was always behind because I didn't have the budget. But in the mid-90s, let's say, it was a popular car with rallying in North America, especially in Canada. It was like later on the Subarus came, but before the Subarus, that was probably the best package that you could go with without spending a lot of money. Yeah. Turbo engine, four-wheel drive. So as a production car, it was already pretty good. So we found a car that the guy had built a cage in it, but stopped the project. And back then, my good friend Yannick was co-driving for me, and he had a garage, and he was very good with his hands. And so we bought the car. We sold the Corolla. With the little bit of money we had, we scrapped around, whatever. I don't remember exactly how we did that, but we did buy the car, and we prepared it ourselves. So... And right away, I felt at home in a four-wheel drive car. The first event we did was Perce-Neige. We finished 5th overall. Yeah.
It was natural going from rear-wheel drive to four-wheel drive.
Natural for me. Okay. And because my first car I drove on the street was a front-wheel drive. Yeah. And my dad had showed me right away left foot braking and things like that at 16. So I was fortunate to be in contact with these techniques very early.
Yes.
So... Yes, then I rallied a little bit. But even when I was rallying the rear-wheel drive, I was still left-foot braking because, to me, left-foot braking, in some places. And you look at the guys today, they still use left-foot braking even on a rear-wheel drive car. Yeah. So when we went to the four-wheel drive car, it was natural, and right away we had good results, and we won the rookie championship in 2001. And I started to do national events there, and right away it went well. Okay. Started to get a bit of sponsorship and things like that, so... That's where the ball starts to roll a little bit positively. Okay.
So in your mind now, you won the production championship?
No, it was the novice rookie championship, they call it in Canada. So the first year you're doing national events, you're eligible to that championship.
Like a rookie of the year.
Yeah, rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year. Yeah. The next photo that I have is this. Yeah. 2002. So just for the audience, this is the Hyundai Elantra.
Yeah, we could do a full podcast just on the adventure of this.
Tell the audience how that car came about.
Yeah, so we did 2 years with the Eagle Talon.
Yeah.
01, and actually we only did 2001 and the beginning of 2002, and already I wanted to go the next level.
Yeah.
And the click of this came at Persneige, the first event of 2002.
Yeah.
We were setting fastest times with the Eagle Talon production car on snow and ice. So
Yeah.
winning stages against Evos and Group N and open class cars. So right after the rally, I advertised the car to sell it. And people think that a car that does good times is
the car.
It's
Yeah,
the car.
it's the
So
car.
it was very easy to sell.
Yeah.
And I found the Elantra that had been built originally by Libra Racing and John Buffum. But at that time, it was no longer John that was owning the car.
It's been sold off.
It had been sold off. Contacted the guy. It was not in great shape, but we didn't have a lot of money. So we said, yeah, maybe it's a compromise. And we'll do even though we were never big mechanics, we said we could probably do all the small things to tidy it a little bit and make it better. So we bought the car. We painted back to the original livery. I had a friend that had a body shop that was sponsoring us for these kind of things. But then very early, we realized that we could not maintain that car. It was next level for us. We went from a production car, very easy to maintain, to that was a full-blown Group A car with a dock box and bigger engine and different turbo and big brakes. And so
a lot of people don't know the maintenance.
Yeah.
Like once you start going up into, I mean, back then it was Group A days,
Yeah.
but going from a production car to Group A, obviously the driving style is a bit different, but it's the maintenance.
Yeah, the
that is-
maintenance and also the knowledge. If we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have the parts. There was a few parts when I bought the car, but so very soon we decided we need to talk to Mr. Buffum. And for me, John at that time was like an idol.
Yeah.
We'd go to rallies, and he would often come to rallies in Canada. And for me, he was the man. It was, for me, just to call him at first was something intimidating.
Yeah.
So, but I did. He was very nice with me. We drove, because where I live, I'm only like an hour and a half from Libra Racing, the shop in Vermont.
Yeah.
So crossed the border with the truck, brought the car. And then he did, at that time also, I had a little bit more sponsorship, a little bit more budget. And John did a big reprep of the car. And he started to come to rallies with me. And it just clicked. We became good friends. And then the rest of history, I guess.
Well, we'll talk about the later history. But yeah. I think a lot of people at this point can relate to where, you have a competitive car, you're, doing a lot of the work yourself. You're, obviously John is helping you a little bit because he's the guy that built the car.
Yep.
In terms of sponsorship, in terms of the work that you put into it, like how was that time for you?
Well, now I'm 50 years old, okay? And sometimes I'm thinking, how the hell did I do this?
Yeah.
Like you're doing probably. People don't understand sometimes that the commitment it takes, it's almost a full-time job.
Yeah.
So I was always on the phone. I was always preparing a sponsorship deck. I was trying to meet with people, creating events where we'd bring the car. And I was probably very annoying for some people, but that's what I wanted. And you have to have the drive to be the worst. I always told myself the worst will be a no. So if I don't ask, I'm not going to know. So it was, and at that time, my kids were born. So come back from work, a little bit of time at home with the kids. Then when they're in bed, straight to the shop, work on the car until midnight, what it needed.
Yeah.
Come back the next day, try to call sponsors and make deals. And so it was a constant. But at first, what I was proposing to sponsors was a per event deal. So I never asked a crazy amount of money to sponsors. I was asking money because it's money you need.
Yeah.
It's good to have product, but I needed the money to go to the events and put fuel in the service van and pay for hotel and entry fees and things like that. So I was asking a certain amount of money per event. So if I have a bad season, I only do 4 events, then it's just going to cost you 4 events. And it worked well, and we had some good results. And later on, bigger sponsorship came. But yeah, it was a. Yeah, it's.
I think that's a great tip for our audiences. I think a sponsor, if you send them the whole season, $100,000, it's a bit overwhelming. But if you divide it up by event, it's a little bit more manageable, I think, for somebody who's looking at the sponsorship deck and seeing, maybe there's some ROI on this.
Yeah, and if you have to try to put yourself in the shoes of the company you're approaching. Like, I own businesses now, and a kid comes to see me. You want to do one or two events with that person. Is it a right fit? Will he represent your company correctly? What's going to happen? So for me, it worked. And that's a tip that I give to young people also. If you try to go get $100,000 when you've never done a rally and you have no results, and
it's impossible.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's impossible. I want to move on to a car that you campaigned for a very long time. So, we obviously talked about the Elantra, and then what photo is coming next.
Yeah.
You have the Tiburon, which is another John Buffum car.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Did the Elantra start to get a bit old, non-competitive?
Actually, there's another car that we campaigned before the new Tiburon. So at some point, the Elantra was really tired, but we had done over a year and a half maybe all the good work to make it work. Like, the gearbox had been revised, the engine was okay, brake, suspension, everything was okay, but the chassis was like...
It was getting old.
Very old.
Yeah.
Like, when you do this with metal at some point, it's going to flex more and more and more. And John had one of the first Tiburons that they had built, if you remember, with the wrong lights and the round lights in the front. Lights in the front and stuff like that. So basically, he was very nice with me. He said, we're going to take all the mechanic, because it was the same drivetrain and everything. Yeah. So we took the good stuff we had put in the Elantra over a year and a half, and we switched it in the better chassis, let's say.
Yeah, a lot of Evo parts from what I recall.
Evo and but Mitsubishi Galant basically back then. So if you think of the Galant Group A that was running in the World Championship, that was basically that.
The VR4.
Yeah. So we did 04 with the newer chassis, let's say the Tiburon, but then we had problems, and those cars were starting to get old. And at some point, John was done with the Hyundai USA factory program, and the cars were there in the shop. And I said, for me, it was a dream to drive these cars. So let me go back a little bit. So in 04, we had a bunch of problems with the older Tiburon, and in PFR, Pacific Forest Rally, in October of 04, I went to the rally and I made a deal with Pat Richard to drive one of his cars. So Pat was driving for Subaru Canada.
Yes.
And he had a Group N Subaru that he was also using in the US. So I made a deal with Pat, went to BC, did a test, and did Pacific Forest Rally with his car. And we had a great rally. We finished second. We split the two factory Subarus, so they were two open class cars, but we came second behind Pat, but in front of Tom Migier with the Group N, Subaru. And my car was not ready for Tall Pines the next event. And John, I don't know if he saw that, okay, I did drive somebody else's car and I didn't break it, so maybe it was more open. So we decided to go with the newer car to Tall Pines 04, where I had my first victory. Again, thanks to John, because like at that time, he was just letting me use the cars, no renting fee. It was just basically you maintain it like it's your car. Mm-hmm. It's going to be expensive. It's an open class car. But he did not charge me a fee per event to rent the car.
Yeah.
So without that, I would have not been able to do this.
Correct. So obviously John Buffum, majorly influential figure in your rallying career. At this stage, like, is he giving you advice? Is he what is he doing for you?
Well, he did for sure at first when he started to come to rallies with me in 03, 04.
Yeah.
We did some testing together, but I was already past, let's say, the beginner time. And I remember we sat together at a test, and he said, I don't have much to say, but I said, okay, I want you to drive. So I looked at him driver, and it was very similar. You know, I was already dealing well with the left foot braking and things like that. So he never really told me how to drive. It was more about...
You had the technique.
Yeah, I had the technique. It was more about everything around with rallying, the strategy, and that's where I started to learn, you know, setup changes and depending on the rallies and tire choices, and to have more a better vision of a rally. And
and he knows because he's been there, he's done these rallies, so he'll know, like, hey, this is a rougher event, you should set up the car like this. So
and also John acknowledged that the way we were rallying was slightly different than when he was rallying. You know, back when he was rallying, you could afford to start a rally, let's say, drive 8/10 and see what's going on, and maybe you've lost 45 seconds or a minute, and it's not a big deal. But at first, he told me to do that. You know, you can drive a little bit slower, see where, and he was right. Some rallies it worked. You just go a little bit, not crazy, and it's enough.
Yeah.
So just keep it like that.
Yeah.
If it's not enough, then you up the pace.
Yeah.
But then it went to a point where it was always absolutely flat out like it is today.
Yeah.
It's from the word go, from the first meter, you have to be on it, because you can't afford to lose 30 seconds because you're going to struggle. And when you lose, you start a rally on the back foot, then you try to catch up, and then that's where things happen, and you have a puncture, and you're greedy. You want to cut more. And so... But yeah, the general approach to a rally, he was fantastic with me, and he had the knowledge, like you say, that so many. And for me, at that point, we're now friends. He took me under his wing.
Correct.
I don't know why, but I will always be grateful for that. And to this day, we're still very good friends, and always happy to see each other. And
I saw you guys chit-chatting a little bit on breakfast, so that was nice to see. You've done several seasons in the Tiburon Canadian events, a lot of them, but you did a few American events. Was that always the long-term goal to start maybe going across the border and doing American events?
Yeah, it was always the goal. Basically, the goal for me back then.
What was the goal?
To do as many rallies as possible, and it's always good to go see what's happening across the border and what's the competition and benchmark yourself and stuff like that. So in 06 with the Tiburon, we started to actually with the older Tiburon. I think in 04, the first time we came to New England Forest Rally. Yeah. And then same thing in 05, only one rally per year, because New England Forest Rally was easy for me where I'm from.
Yeah, close.
Yeah, close. And in 06, 07, 08, that's where we started to do a little bit more. We started to do 2 or 3 per year on top of our Canadian season. So started to go to Snowdrift, STPR, 100 Acre. Never went out west at that time.
Yeah. The sponsors that you had in Canada, were they supportive of you going to America? Because possibly maybe a conflict of interest.
No, there was no conflict, but there was one company that they had a branch, let's say, in the U.S.
Yeah.
So we had we were changing delivery slightly depending on the events. We had 2 sets of doors and things like that, and we were do small changes. But it was mainly me using the Canadian money and stretching it to go do more rallies in the U.S. It was mainly that, and it was great. And those were the years with, again, starting to battle against Subaru USA, and back then Tanner Faust and Pinker and these guys with the Rockstar Subarus and things like that. So lots of good drivers and good competition.
Yeah, you mentioned Rockstar. Can you tell the audience on how that started to come about? Because now we're in the, I would say, mid 2000s, late 2000s era. Yeah. This is, ESPN is here and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed at least X Games. Yes, this is actually a good segue into the next photo over here.
So back then, to go to X Games, you needed to qualify during the season.
Yes.
So what they were doing is they would say, let's say we have 12 spots, and the first 8 in the Rally America Championship will get an invite, and the other spots were for superstars, let's say Colin McRae, or even if Ken or Travis were not doing well, they would have a spot and things like that. Which
prominent figures.
Yeah, it was normal. So, and in 08, Rockstar, they had a team in the Rally America Championship with Andrew Pinker, but somehow Andrew did not have a good season and did not qualify. But we had a decent season, even though we only did 4 rallies. I think we did qualify. So in their deal, they had to have a car at X Games.
They had to be represented.
Yeah. So basically, we started to talk, and I think it was after New England Forest Rally when it was decided that they would not make it. And I talked with their manager, and they offered me to drive the car at X Games. And then that's where I met the people from Rockstar, and it clicked. We had a good relationship, and started to work a little bit with Tanner Faust also, because Tanner wanted to do more rallies, and we were thinking of building a new car. So that's where we came with building the Evo. I'm making a long story short. It's way longer than that, but the Hyundai was getting tired. Mitsubishi were more involved in Canada. At some point, the president of Mitsubishi Canada was at one rally and said, you should be in a Mitsubishi. We said, well, let's make this happen, you know. And finally, I made a deal with Mitsubishi in Canada. Obviously, when it was time to build a new car, I gave the contract to Libra Racing. For me, it was just a return of, you know, so I gave the contract to John to build the Evo. And then at the same time, we were in discussions with Rockstar and Tanner and stuff like that. So in 09, when we debuted the new car, I was doing the rallies in Canada, and Tanner was doing the rally in Rally America with the Evo.
Yeah.
So
Same car.
Same car.
Okay.
And Rockstar came for both our programs. And then after Tanner went more into rallycross and X Games and stuff like that, and I kept rallying, and Rockstar followed me, and we had like 5 very good years with Rockstar.
Yeah, excellent. That's an amazing. I remember, I think it was 2009. It was more like the white liveried Rockstar, but you were sharing the car with Tanner. With Tanner.
Yeah,
great days. And just for the audience, this is the new Evo 10.
Yeah, correct.
The Evo 10 back in
one of the first ones, like at that time in 2009. Yeah. The Evo 10 was very new, and in Europe there was a couple of Group N Evo 10s already that had been built, but nothing like what we were trying to build. So it was a big effort from John and the Libra Racing team to make it happen, because we wanted an open class car.
Yeah.
So it was hard to find the proper parts, and
because it's a brand new chassis at that time.
Brand new chassis, yeah, and some of the parts were not even developed for an open class car. It was more Group N. Yeah. But he managed to build a fantastic car. And
any teething issues always on a new car?
Well, the first rally we went to was Perce-Neige, and the car showed up at 11 o'clock in p.m. the night before the rally started. So at some point I was finishing the recce, and John was telling me, you're not going to go to shakedown, we're not going to be arrived, and we're not even sure if we're going to do the rally. And finally he showed up. We went to try the car a little bit, and we started the rally, and we had no problems. We actually won the rally. We were a bit lucky. Some people had other problems because we were not the fastest in that first rally. But yeah, debut of the car, won the rally.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah.
I have other photos over here. I mean, obviously at this point there's a long career, a lot of rallies. But this photo sticks out in my mind.
Yeah. That's a crazy story.
So just for the audience, I mean, obviously Antoine here is driving a Mitsubishi, and then this one event, something happens.
Yeah. So every time we'd go to Rally Baie des Chaleurs, we would organizing a little test on a private. A guy owned a old dirt oval with some, and every year we'd go there, we'd call him, could we go do a little shakedown before the event? And he said, yeah, no problem. So we'd come a day early, and at that little shakedown test, we broke something in the gearbox, like one of the main shaft, that we did not have a spare. We did not have a full gearbox. We were basically, we were going to pull out from the event. DNS.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, Crazy Leo, that a lot of people know, was running a pretty good car for his recce car. So it was a fully caged car with a decent suspension, skid plates and stuff like that. It was more of a recce car, but it
could still pass tech.
It could still pass it had proper seats and stuff like that. Yeah. But let's say the seat belts were outdated and things like that. But so at some point, I made a deal with Leo, and Leo said, yeah, you can use the recce car. So both the teams, my guys and the CanJam guys, basically we stripped everything we needed from the Evo, like belts and lights and intercom or whatever we needed. And both the team worked together to make that car ready to pass tech and do the rally.
How when you asked Leo, did you have to really convince him or no?
Leo was a guy that I tried to help also when he started. He was very passionate, and I'm always happy to help somebody that is willing to learn and is passionate and is asking questions. So I think for him it was just like he was happy to help me. It was a return of, I don't know, but we had some problems, and it was hard for me to go back to, because at that time, like you say, I've been driving like open class cars, proper cars with that you can drive hard without really thinking, and suddenly I'm back in a production car
with a synchro gearbox. You have to use the clutch.
Everything. Yeah. So it was a bit hard, but we still had some very good times with that car on the long stage. Where I could keep the momentum. Times were very good, but we had some punctures. And anyway, we did finish the rally. We scored a few points that we said could matter at the end of the year.
Sure.
Because back then there was a big competition between myself with my team and Pat Richard with Subaru Canada.
Yeah.
So it was always a big battle at every event. So every pointed counted. And
Mitsubishi versus Subaru.
Yeah. Even though our team, it was not a factory team, we had the support from them. And we actually had to ask them. I didn't do that in their back. We told them, we called the guy, here's what happened, here's the situation. And they were okay with it because it was still my team.
Yeah.
It would have been a different story if it would have been a full factory team. They would have said no. But I had other sponsors to please too. So my main sponsor was Rockstar and Yokohama and Concerto. So we had stickers that we put on the Subaru. So
and obviously this is a very prominent event in the Canadian Championship Pays de Chaleur.
Yeah, for sure. One of the best.
Yeah. I have, hopefully this doesn't bring back bad memories, but I have.
Yeah. Oh, that's good memory.
I have this. Yeah. So just for the context of, I believe this was 2012.
Yeah.
So you were doing well with the Evo 10, but it was very difficult for you to compete against the factory Subaru team.
Yeah.
So how did this WRC Evo come about?
So we had won the Rally America Championship in 2010. And in 2011, Subaru decided to bring David Higgins. So we had some great battle with David, and we became friends and great respect between the two of us. But we could just not keep up with the car we had. We were at the maximum of what that Evo 10 could do with the budget we had. So I was scratching my head, what could we do again? Like still driven, like I want to beat these guys. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to do. So I'm winning in Canada, but I want to win in the US more. And I don't know exactly how this came about, but we got in touch with John Easton we got in touch with John Easton before, because when we built the Evo 10, we wanted to make it the second one we built, because we built two cars. So the second one we built, we wanted to make it more an R4, if you remember what R4 was. So different suspension arms and more like, it was more like a Group N Plus. And we thought, let's use some of these parts to make the second car better. So we went to Europe, went to meet with John Easton in England, because John Buffum knew him from back in the day, and connections. And that's where we started to talk with John Easton. And at some point, somehow, I don't know why, but we managed to organize a test with them. So we flew over, Nat and I, in Czech Republic in late 2012, and we did a one-day test with that car. So that was unbelievable.
Do you remember like your initial impression about the car?
Oh yeah, it was like paddle shift and everything. And in terms of power, it was not more than what we had in the Evo 10. So that was not crazy. It was more the package that was impressive. So we did the test, and after that, we tried to figure a way to bring this car over.
Yeah.
And do you remember Rifat Sung car?
Yes.
So at some point, Rifat contacted John Easton.
The Riley driver from Thailand.
Yeah, from Indonesia.
Indonesia, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So contacted John Easton to have an inquiry about a project he had to do some rallies in North America. So John Easton said, well, I don't really do that. I'm in the UK. Why don't you call John Buffum? So basically, we did a deal at 3 people. So I was renting my car to Rifat, the Evo 10 for the Rally America series. And basically, I was using the money to rent the WRC Evo. So, okay, we needed a little bit more money, but we scratched everything. Every money I had everywhere, we did. And we made the deal. So it was starting in Oregon 2013, and I think we had a deal for the remainder of the season, which was, I think, 4 or 5 events.
Yeah.
The car would have stayed at Libra Racing. The guys from MML would come only for the events.
But it would be maintained by John.
Probably some small things, but I think it was more a deal. Well, these guys, what they do is they send the car with a bunch of parts, and they do the re-prep after a rally, and then they fly back home.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe small things John would have maintained, but John still had to maintain the Evo 10 for Rifat.
Of course.
So anyway, it was a nice project. The car looked fantastic, and we went to Oregon and didn't go well. Yep.
So before the crash, is it a different driving style from the Evo 10, all the cars that you've driven? How is this, for give you a little bit of context for the people who've obviously not many people have driven a WRC car. Yeah. Was it difficult for you to adjust?
The thing is, at the test, we had a very good test before the event with the car.
Yeah.
And it felt really good. So I don't know if it was the type of road, but it didn't take too much to adapt. It was a car that had a small window, I think, of working really well. It was not super easy to drive, but when you get it right, it was still an open class car, same basic techniques and stuff like that. And it was already very well set up back then. It had rallied for many years. So for me in the test, it felt pretty good. But then we started the rally, and the times were not bad. I think we had 1 or 2 fastest time in the early stages. So we knew we were competitive. Now with that car, we could maybe give them a good fight, Subaru USA, or maybe win.
Yeah.
But then we came back to service, and the brakes were cooked. So somehow maybe I was too hard on the brakes, left foot braking too much. And these guys from Europe, they said, oh yeah, we look at the data, you're left foot braking too much. You need to change your driving style a little bit. That's not going to work. We're not going to do the rally. So I left service thinking. So instead of just driving normally, I was always thinking. So, and when you start, I was not just driving naturally. And I had always driven like that with the Tiburon, with the Evo 10, and it was the way I was driving. And the Libra Racing Evo 10 could cope with the way I was braking. How come a WRC car could not? I was a bit confused, And it happened, so I did a mistake. Basically, probably I was not fully focused. I was always thinking, am I left foot braking too much? Here, not. And then at some point I misjudged a note. Not did the call correctly, but I just went the wrong direction. It was very deceptive. And then down the ravine, everybody knows. But we were lucky because it was a big fall with big tree stumps and stuff like that. So, but then the guys from MML, they were okay. They said it's just metal. They had been there. They had been in the World Championship. You two are okay. That's the main thing. And
What was your first thought post crash?
Wow.
What went through your head?
I had crashed before, so at that point in my career, it was not something like you're the new guy, that you've put everything into this and you've crashed and you're devastated. Yeah, I was devastated because I could see all the effort that had been put into this. But at first you're just like, it's later on. Sometimes you think, I'm an optimist guy also. Sometimes you think, it's going to be, they'll fix it. Because I've seen miracles, It'll be okay, we'll go to the next rally. But then at some point they look at the car and maybe it's a few days after where you realize that's it.
It's not happening.
Not happening. Also, when we made the deal, we were talking, you and I, earlier about that insurance. When we made the deal for 5 rallies, it was very expensive to get an insurance. So in our budget that we had stretched to the maximum, we decided to not take the insurance. So you can just imagine it was a very expensive crash.
Yeah.
Still, John Easton was fair in what he asked, because basically the shell was done, but mechanically we had not break anything basically.
Yeah. It would need a reshell.
It would need a reshell,
Yeah.
but so he didn't charge me a full car. Basically, it was like a shell.
Yeah.
And luckily, Refat was still renting my car to finish the Rally America season. So basically, the money went instead of going to rent the car, the money went to fix the car.
Yeah.
And that's why in 2013 we finished the season with. We got the old Tiburon back for New England Forest Rally, and then we made an agreement with Vermont Sports Car to get in a Subaru for the end of the season. At that
Tiburon.
time, the Tiburon.
I remember you.
for Maine.
I remember you on the side of the road. I think the wheel was snapped off or something. Your face didn't look too happy.
Yeah, broke the wheel studs, and
Yeah.
that was again, it was to please sponsors. We needed to be there, but it was a bit of a push to make this car back and competitive to go do a rally. And and then the few rallies with Vermont in the Subaru, that was very nice also, because David and Ken had a big battle for the championship, and I needed to be at the rallies, and it was not bad for them to have a second car there also.
You're kind of the joker in the bunch.
Kinda. So it helped. It was okay for everybody.
Did you approach them or did they approach you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did, but I think it was just the right timing.
Yeah.
Sometime I saw, you need to see these things, I saw what was happening.
Yeah.
And
I want to talk about 2013. The thing that sticks out into my mind is your win at Snowdrift. Last stage, you pulled out. I think you won it by 20 seconds or something like that, and you obviously won the event.
Yeah.
Was that your most satisfying moment? Maybe looking back in rallying.
Yeah, for sure. Probably one of my best wins. I had a couple like that in Canada with Pat Richard, like that went down to the wire for the last few stages. But that one, for sure, is special because David had beat me at Snowdrift in 2012. He was the champion.
Big margin. He beat you by a big margin.
Yeah, I think it was decent. In 2011, when he came, I was leading Snowdrift, but then I did a mistake, and then he blew his engine, so we didn't really know. And then we won at 100 Acre in 2011, but after that, the rest of the year he was faster. So
yeah,
I've always been. I'm not a bullshit guy. Like, I hate the excuses that some of the guys have all the time. I just hate that. I have a good stage. I'm thinking it will be hard to be beaten, and a guy comes 5 seconds faster. Good job. Yeah, I'm not going to say, oh, finally, it didn't feel so good. The diffs are not right. Some of them are like that. So we went to Snowdrift, and we just had a fantastic rally. Battle for 2 days. As you know, you've won Snowdrift. Snowdrift is a long rally. Yeah. It's complicated, night stages.
It's a tense driving experience, at least from my perspective.
You're constantly on the edge, and the pace we were going, like the third guy was 10 minutes behind at the end of the rally. So it was like toe to toe. And we entered the stage before the last one, a 15-miler stage, and we were 20 seconds behind David. And it was the biggest margin we had for the entire rally. It was always 10, 15, 6, but he was always a little bit faster. Maybe I was winning a stage by 2 seconds, but the next one he was winning by 5. So he was stretching slowly his lead. Mm-hmm. And we went in the long stage, and we just decided to have a good push. And we had almost like a perfect stage, on snow when everything clicks, and it felt like we had the right tires, the good grip, pushing just enough to not lose too much time. And at the end of the stage, we were 20 seconds faster over 15 miles. So we entered the last one, Bonfire Alley, I think 1 second apart or something like that. And we did it in the last stage. I think we won the stage by 5 or 6 seconds. So we won the rally.
Yeah. I remember the videos.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
Once you heard the time.
Yeah. It was a great win.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time because just for the audience, I know we're here at
it's okay.
Southern Ohio Forest Rally, and you're going to go spectate a little bit. I want to talk about 2015 when you got the Subaru contract. So it was always you battling Subaru in Canada, and then all of a sudden the tables turned. Can you explain to the audience how that happened?
Yeah, actually in 2014, Subaru Canada built a new car. And Pat Richard, unfortunately, had some too many concussions, and you can ask him. Maybe you should do a podcast with Pat.
I tried.
And he was in a situation where he could put himself at risk, and he had to stop rallying. But he was running the team because Rocket Rally, his business, was like a bit like Vermont Sports Car in the U.S., was running the Subaru Canada program. Yeah. So in 2014, when Pat could not continue, and it's a small world, everybody talks to everybody. The guys from Subaru Canada knew I was there, but they went with Martin Rowe because Martin Rowe, British Rally champion, lives in BC in Canada, and was friend with Pat, and they went with Martin Rowe in 2014. And at that time, I had lost the Rockstar sponsorship, so we were struggling a little bit, but I was a bit pissed, let's say, that I did not get the drive. So in 2014, we had a crazy season. We won all the rallies. Yeah. So even though they came with a new car, I was in a mindset where I just wanted to
prove a point.
Yeah. So it was not even like, even if I had won all the stages and I could afford to relax for the end of the rally, it was just prove a point. I was trying to win every stages and all the time. And we had a great season. We won the championship. Unfortunately, it didn't go so well for them, and they had an accident at Tall Pines in the last rally. And later on in December, a few weeks after Tall Pines, the phone rang for the first time in my life, because you're always contacting sponsors. The phone rang, and it was the guys from Subaru Canada in Toronto. They asked me if I could come to sit with them just before Christmas, and they offered me the deal. So,
I'm assuming you didn't have to think long about that.
No, I didn't have to think long, and then it meant that I would work with Pat. So, for
your arch nemesis.
Yeah, but there was always a good respect between Pat and I, and we got to know each other as competitors, but also we were friends in the bar after the rallies. And then I got to drive for him, so that was really cool, and we had great success. And I'm still doing some stuff with Subaru Canada and some videos with them, and it was the beginning of a great relationship. And
And I'm assuming, I don't have the timeline here, but the motorsports program dried up.
Yeah,
essentially, and that's what happened.
Yeah, that's what happened. They decided to, sometimes manufacturers, when they've achieved what they want, we had very successful years. We won everything, and at some point they decided to stop the program. So at that point, I had sold everything we had with John. We had sold the Evo, we had sold the truck, the parts, everything. So we were in a situation, I was in a situation where I was with nothing. So did a few rallies there and there for the past few years, but never managed to get back fully into it. And I miss it. So I've never retired. It's funny because they decided to stop. I was not ready to stop.
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening, I'm happy to get back in a car anytime.
I want to close this podcast. I mean, I think everyone who's listening to this knows you're a fantastic talent. Is there anything on the horizon? Yeah,
like I said, like we spoke a little bit earlier. Yeah, I'm trying. I've put up together a very good package to present to sponsors. So at the moment, there's a few things cooking in the oven, but I don't know if it will happen. But for sure, I feel like I have unfinished business. So I would really like to get out there and go rallying again. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to answer for that for now.
Well, I certainly hope it happens. I think I would agree that you were an amazing talent, and I still don't think it's time to hang up the helmet just yet. I still think you have a spot somewhere there if you can pull something together. So Antoine, it was fantastic talking to you. Thank you for giving me the time. It was an honor, and maybe we'll later today we'll go to the bar. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark.
Thank you, Antoine.
Bye.
And there you have it, folks. Antoine L'Estage, a true hero of mine because he's always had to work for his success and never had it easy. You can just tell his passion for rally, and even to this day, after a few years off, the fire is still inside him. Antoine, I hope to see you out on the stages very soon. Switching gears, I was very honored to have such positive feedback from my first episode with Tim O'Neill. Andrew Benson on YouTube said, loved Tim's story about going back to Europe to become world champ, but then deciding to open a rally school instead. Thanks, Tim, a lot of us would still be dreamers without the school. Andrew, I completely agree with you. Tim's facility is top-notch, and if it wasn't for his efforts, a lot of us would not have the ability to hone our skills in such a great facility. Mal Swan on YouTube also said, I enjoyed this. Never had the chance to just sit down and talk with Tim, but it felt like we were just all having a beer. Awesome. Well, thanks, Mal. That is a great compliment, and I hope you tune in for future episodes. In the meantime, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the That's Rally podcast. We're on all the top podcast apps, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course, those watching on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on the next episode. See you guys on the next one.